So we dug into the material you shared, and wow, what a story we found. Today, we're tracing a history that spans, well, exactly 500 years. It's a story of incredible persistence, starting way back in 1519, detailing this unique and often really dangerous journey of Jewish life in Mexico.
Yeah, that half millennium timeline, it's absolutely fundamental, isn't it? This isn't just, a story about 20th century immigration. It's about these deep, deep roots forged under, well, considerable duress.
Right.
Our mission today really is to trace this journey of resilience from those secretive pioneers who were risking their lives centuries ago, all the way up to modern leaders shaping the nation right now.
We'll follow the distinct waves then. The Sephardic crypto Jews, the Ashkenazi refugees, the Syrian arrivals too. And we have to ask that critical question you flagged. How did a community born under the absolute threat of the Spanish Inquisition, how did it evolve into this sophisticated, integrated community, the one that produced, the country's current president?
It is a remarkable evolution. And yeah, we have to start right at the beginning,
Yeah.
1519, those early years of Spanish colonization.
And these first Jones, they weren't really immigrants in the modern sense, were they? They were conversos.
Exactly. Conversos, or crypto Jews, yeah, sometimes called Marranos, though that term's a bit fraught.
Okay.
Basically, they were converts or descendants of converts who'd been forced into the Catholic Church back in Spain and Portugal, under threat of expulsion.
And they actually sailed with Hernan Cortez, the conquistador.
They did,
Hmm.
which is ironic considering his mission was aggressively evangelical, entirely focused on converting the indigenous population.
So why were the conversos there? What were they seeking?
Well, better economic opportunities, certainly, and perhaps hoping the New World offered a bit of a reprieve,
Yeah.
less intense scrutiny than back in the Old World.
But that wasn't really the case, was it? The sources suggest anti-Semitism followed them pretty much immediately.
Oh, absolutely. They faced constant suspicion, hostility, and, most terrifyingly, the Mexican Inquisition itself. The documents really make it clear the immense courage it took just to continue practicing Judaism in secret.
For centuries, right. We read about that tragic, quite famous example, Luis de Carvajal the Younger,
Ah, yes, the writer.
a celebrated Mexican crypto Jew executed by the Inquisition in 1596. And he was the nephew of a provincial governor. It just shows the mortal threat they lived under.
It really does, which, leads to one of the most remarkable insights from the sources, I think.
What's that?
This community, these crypto Jews, they actually outlasted the Catholic Church's official domination of Mexico. They survived.
But how? I mean, how is that even possible? A population under such extreme threat, with the state actively trying to erase them? How did they manage it?
It seems like a combination of things.
Yeah.
Physical isolation for one New Spain was vast. Strategic masking of their true identity, obviously. And then eventually political shifts helped too.
So, sort of flying under the radar, resilience, and then political change.
Yeah, the sources imply this quiet internal network, a commitment that just defied all the official efforts. And that pressure cooker environment, it finally did end.
Okay. When was that?
The Mexican Inquisition was formally abolished in 1820, and that was followed very quickly by Mexican independence. That created a whole new world for Jewish history there.
Right. So, that political shift, it basically opened the floodgates for fresh waves of immigrants, new identities, people not tainted by that shadow of the Inquisition.
Exactly. The 19th and especially the early 20th centuries, that's when you see the massive arrival of Ashkenazi Jews, mostly fleeing the pogroms in Eastern Europe.
These would be Russians, Poles, Lithuanians.
That's right. Often referred to collectively as Yiddish. And they were absolutely essential. They arrived and immediately started creating the institutional bedrock of the modern community.
Building things.
Building synagogues, establishing Jewish schools, forging strong community organizations. They really brought the infrastructure, you could say.
And the mix of identities quickly became quite global then. It wasn't just Ashkenazi Jews.
Not at all. Alongside the Yiddish, you had two major groups coming from the Middle East. The Shamis and Halabis from Syria, specifically Damascus and Aleppo,
Okay, Shamis from Damascus, Halabis from Aleppo. Got it.
and also Sephardi Jews, often called Turcos, who were fleeing the crumbling Ottoman Empire around the same time.
So you have Eastern European, Syrian, and former Ottoman influences all arriving. How did that mix work?
Well, this is where we can sort of synthesize the impacts, looking at the sources.
Yeah.
It wasn't just ethnic diversity. It was almost like a division of labor in a way that cemented the community's future.
How so?
The Ashkenazi groups often focused on building that religious and social framework, providing the institutions.
Hmm?
Meanwhile, the Levantine groups, the Syrian and Sephardic Jews, frequently brought deep connections to international trade.
Ah, providing the early commercial and economic muscle.
Exactly. That supported the burgeoning community. So you had these sort of parallel structures being built, one social and religious, the other economic. It allowed the community to really stand on its own feet.
That makes perfect sense. And the success, it just accelerated after World War II, didn't it?
It did. Immigration policies liberalized further, more settlers came, and they contributed massively to Mexico's post-war economic growth. And they benefited from greater integration and acceptance during that period.
Which brings us more towards the present day. Their impact today seems undeniable.
Absolutely. Even though the community size is relatively small, estimates cap out around maybe 100,000 people. The material we looked at stresses, again and again, that Jews in Mexico punch above their weight.
That disproportionate national impact is fascinating. You can really see it in the political and cultural spheres.
You really can.
Hmm.
I mean, look no further than the country's current president, Claudia Sheinbaum, identified as Jewish, of mixed Ashkenazi and Sephardi descent, and also an internationally respected scientist. That's integration at the very highest political level.
And in media.
Well, you had figures like Jacobo Zabludovsky, the former anchorman whose news program, 24 Horas, dominated Mexican airways for nearly 2 decades. A household name.
Okay. And what about that economic muscle we talked about earlier? Any standout examples of that generational financial success?
Oh, yes. The prime example there has to be Isaac Saba Raful. His family came from the ancient Syrian Jewish community in Aleppo.
From the Halabis, right?
From the Halabis, exactly. They started humbly, apparently in the rag trade down in Veracruz. But Raful built this massive dynasty, ultimately a net worth over $2 billion before passing the companies to his sons. That speaks volumes about economic stability and enormous generational influence.
So if they're achieving this incredible success, this integration across politics, media, business, you'd naturally assume assimilation follows, wouldn't you?
You would think so. But this is where the paradox emerges, and it's really the key takeaway from the sources about modern Mexican Jewry.
What's the paradox?
Despite this high level of integration and national success, the levels of intermarriage are cited as extremely low, especially when you compare it to somewhere like the United States.
Really? So they're thriving within the nation, but intentionally keeping separate, communally speaking.
Pretty much. They're preserving their traditional heritages, strengthening their community institutions. It's quite distinct.
Why? Why are they so successful at this cultural preservation where maybe other diaspora communities haven't been?
The answer seems to lie heavily in their commitment to education. We found this fascinating statistic. An estimated 90% of Mexican Jewish children attend Jewish day schools.
90%. Wow.
That high rate, plus you have these highly active youth movements like Maccabi and B'nai Akiva, that really acts as the primary anchor for cultural continuity.
And geographically, they're concentrated.
Very much so. About 3/4 of Mexican Jews live in Mexico City. So the capital is the unquestionable center of gravity for the community.
So if we wanted to, understand that 500-year history and actually see it physically anchored in the city today, where would we look? These institutions aren't just buildings, are they? They're like cultural safe harbors.
Precisely. Well, let's start with those Levantine roots we talked about. The Monte Sinai Synagogue, built back in 1918. Specifically for immigrants from Syria and the Levant. It's apparently an architectural marvel, noted for its wonderful wooden carvings, a painted domed ceiling. It really functions as a constant reminder, an anchor for that specific heritage.
And for the Ashkenazi groups, the Yiddish.
You'd look at the Niji's Israel Synagogue. It's in the La Merced neighborhood.
Yeah.
Interestingly, its design was inspired by a synagogue back in Lithuania.
Ah, connecting back.
Exactly. It has this unassuming neocolonial facade, so it kind of blends into the streetscape.
Huh?
But inside, it's beautifully decorated, very light-filled. A key communal focal point anchoring that Yiddish identity.
And for someone wanting a deeper historical dive, the sources mentioned a research center.
Yes, the CDIJUM, the Jewish Documentation and Research Center. That sounds like an essential stop.
It's there.
It houses a museum and an archive. Documents, artifacts, some dating back to at least the 17th century. You can see old passports, immigration papers, things that offer these incredibly poignant glimpses into the lived experiences, the struggles of Jews in Mexico over time. It preserves the evidence.
We've covered history, business, religion, community structures. Let's finish with maybe the best metaphor for this whole complex identity. The food. Mexican Jewish food is described as creative cuisine.
Oh, absolutely. It's the ultimate fusion, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is where all those influences we talked about, Central Latin American, Eastern European, Syrian, Mediterranean, Israeli,
Hmm.
they don't just coexist, they actively blend.
Can you give examples? What does that taste like?
Well, think about gefilte, a classic Ashkenazi dish, right? But here, maybe prepared in a spicy tomato sauce, Veracruz style,
Okay.
or homemade Syrian kibbeh, but then paired specifically with, say, a guacamole sauce.
Wow. Okay. That's a blend.
Right. Even conventional dishes get a local twist. You find locally sourced 100% agave kosher tequila or kosher salamis and stuffed lamb dishes that reflect that Mediterranean diet of the Levant arrivals.
So it beautifully illustrates how the community has fully embraced the flavors of Mexico while still rigorously preserving the foundations of its traditional cuisines.
Exactly. And just a practical note for the listener, if you're traveling there, the community seems really geared towards hospitality. Sources mention finding kosher-friendly hotels, over 24 synagogues just in Mexico City, and plenty of options for organized Shabbat meals or getting a local welcome.
Okay, so we've completed the deep dive. We've traced this incredible journey, haven't we? From those brave conversos risking everything with Cortez, facing the Inquisition,
Mhm.
all the way to the sophisticated, integrated, yet fiercely distinct community that exists today. A community preserving traditions that stretch literally from Aleppo to Lithuania, all within Mexico.
Yeah, the story of Mexican Jewry really is one of exceptional self-determination. They endured centuries of oppression, then subsequent waves of displacement.
Yeah.
Yet they've managed to establish this thriving, influential, and actually growing presence. And often, it seems, succeeding precisely because of their communal preservation.
So here's a final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over, building on what we've discussed. The Mexican Jewish community seems to have achieved these really high levels of modern integration, producing powerful leaders, successful dynasties, while simultaneously maintaining that exceptionally high rate of cultural preservation, that 90% Jewish school attendance, the extremely low intermarriage rate.
It's a unique balance.
It is. So what does this unique balancing act thriving within a national culture while intentionally choosing to remain somewhat separate communally? What might that suggest about a future blueprint? Maybe for other global diaspora communities trying to maintain their identity in our rapidly globalizing world.
That's a fascinating model to consider, isn't it? We definitely encourage you to explore the sources further, dive deeper into this unique and really resonant history.